Yes, as a result, after appearing on the show, Redding was handed his check for $208, which he then promptly endorsed over to Herman. His son still has it. Spiro remembers watching the Browns game with his family the next day when his father got the call. The plane carrying Redding and his band had crashed into a lake in Wisconsin, killing the singer and 6 others.
Just take a moment and imagine, right when you're standing at the mountaintop of your life, with the world screaming your name and the lights blindingly bright, death steps up and whispers in your ear, "It's time to go." In that heavy second, would you shrink back in fear, or would you gather every last bit of breath in your lungs to finish your work and leave a mark that truly matters before you depart? We, having traveled through most of the long miles of this journey, know all too well that the line between a breath of life and the great silence is nothing but a thin thread. But there are black artists of ours. They chose to stand tall right on that ragged, cruel edge. Today, we will walk together through a journey so haunting it'll leave you breathless. 45 final performances of legendary black artists before they died. Now, these weren't just glitzy stage shows. They are films of destiny, recording the moments when black icons were face to face with the end, right when at the radiant height of their golden years. There is the one who was handed a death sentence right on that stage, but still chose to wipe away the sweat to keep on giving to his people, only to be cut down just hours later. There is the one who fell cold the second his fingers left the keys, or those black souls using their finest suits to hide a body that was failing and wounds that were bleeding in their spirit under the crushing weight of fate. Why did destiny choose that exact moment of glory to pull the final curtain? Could it be that every lyric, dance move, look, or smile that night was actually a suicide note written in code, a mysterious warning they intentionally wove into the melody to let us know they knew they would never see tomorrow? On the evening of December 9th, 1967, inside the cramped studios of the television show Upbeat in Cleveland, Ohio, Otis Redding stood, surrounded by the harsh glare of old stage lights. At 26, the man revered as the King of Soul appeared dignified in a dark suit, preparing for the recording of his hit song, Respect. Behind him, the younger members of the Bar-Kays were brimming with energy, completely unaware that the drums and trumpets they were about to play would be the last sounds recorded in their entire career. Behind the radiant facade lay the harsh reality of the demanding work that black artists faced at the time to maintain their fame. Otis was caught in a grueling touring schedule in the Midwest, where rest time was measured in minutes between trips. The godfather of soul, James Brown, a colleague always obsessed with safety, had often expressed concern about Otis's habit of using small private jets, especially as the harsh winter began to blanket the Great Lakes runways with ice. But that evening in Cleveland, Otis cast aside all worries about the weather. He poured all his energy into the microphone, stomped his foot, and sang as if trying to squeeze out his last ounce of strength for his audience. Tragedy struck just as the studio lights went out. Only hours after completing the recording, Otis and his band hastily left Cleveland for Madison, Wisconsin. On December 10th, the Beechcraft H-18 crashed into the frozen Lake Monona, just miles from its destination. News of the accident spread like an earthquake through the black community in America. The women who just the day before had been captivated by Otis's dance moves in front of their televisions were now shocked to learn that their idol's body had been found at the bottom of a freezing lake. Otis Redding's death at the height of his career was not simply a traffic accident, but a painful silence for the soul music era of the 1960s. His performance at Upbeat that year lacked any mystical omens, but it was a stark glimpse into the life of a star, shining to an extreme degree under the spotlight just before being swallowed by darkness and icy water. It was a tragic end that no entertainment magazine at the time could have foreseen. On September 6, 1970, amidst the frigid and windy landscape of Fehmarn Island, West Germany, the Festival of Peace and Love unfolded in a way far from peaceful, as its name suggested. Amidst the chaos of violent motorcycle gangs clashing with security forces and a Baltic storm wreaking havoc on the sound equipment, Jimi Hendrix took to the stage, much to the astonishment of thousands of weary spectators. At 27, the artist considered a wizard of the electric guitar appeared exhausted, his gaunt face showing the fatigue of sleepless nights and the immense pressure of the showbiz world. Instead of the usual fiery performances, the rare surviving footage from the event captured a Jimi Hendrix quietly struggling with himself. Under the gray sky and heavy rain, he stood there, struggling to control his Fender Stratocaster amidst the chaotic howling of waterlogged equipment. His eyes no longer held the wildness of Woodstock. Instead, there was a strange somberness. Jimi performed an experimental set, at times seemingly lost in his own sonic world, completely detached from the screaming crowd below. This wasn't a performance to conquer the audience, but rather a final attempt to find solace in music amidst a life spiraling out of control. The pain behind the Fehmarn performance lay not in the music itself, but in the mental breakdown of an icon. Close friends in the entertainment industry later recounted that Jimi had reached the limit of his endurance. He hated being forced to perform old hits and longed for a renewal that the music industry wasn't ready for. As the final notes faded amidst the howling winds of Fehmarn, Jimi hastily left the stage to return to London, carrying with him the faint hope of a new beginning. However, fate did not grant him that chance. Less than 2 weeks after that somber performance, on September 18, 1970, the world was shocked to learn of Jimi Hendrix's death at a London hotel. Death by asphyxiation after collapsing from an overdose of sedatives brought a cruel end to the journey of a genius. That performance in West Germany now appeared as a prophecy of separation, where the solitary artist stood in the storm, using his final notes to bid farewell to a world he no longer felt belonged to. On the night of July 4, 1996, amidst the electrifying atmosphere of Independence Day in Los Angeles, the House of Blues became the center of an earthquake named Tupac Shakur. In the smoky, dimly lit space, Tupac took to the stage with an overwhelming surge of energy, showcasing the terrifying intensity of his performance that had become his trademark. This was a powerful performance by an uncrowned king of hip-hop, a man at the peak of his career, yet simultaneously surrounded by enemies and the watchful eye of fate. Throughout the performance, later recorded and released as a live album, the audience witnessed a captivating internal struggle. On one hand, sharp political rhymes. On the other, an edgy, rebellious personal spirit. At the House of Blues that night, the artist gave his all, completely unaware that this would be his last time under the spotlight of the City of Angels. However, behind that dazzling triumph lay the dramatic twists of reality. The performance took place amidst the extremely tense East Coast-West Coast rivalry. The provocative rap lyrics and the appearance of members of Death Row Records on stage served as a silent declaration of war, making the atmosphere at the House of Blues not just filled with music, but also with lurking danger. Just 2 months after this performance, tragedy struck when Tupac was assassinated in a Las Vegas shooting. Those cruel gunshot wounds at the age of 25 not only ended the life of a rebellious icon, but also fired the opening shot for an immortal legend, transforming that Independence Day performance into a living testament preserving the last breath of an ill-fated hip-hop icon. On March 1, 1997, just 8 days before one of the most tragic chapters in hip-hop history was written, Christopher Wallace, or Biggie Smalls, stepped into the studio of 92.3 The Beat in Los Angeles. At the time, the atmosphere in California was one of intense tension and suffocation from the East-West rivalry, with the pain of Tupac Shakur's death still fresh in the entertainment industry just 6 months prior.
When the velvet curtain closes and the final sounds fade away, we suddenly realize we have just bid farewell to a part of history.
Only to be stunned, we wonder, Did these black legends sing knowing tomorrow would never come?
Biggie's appearance on The Wake Up Show with Sway and King Tech in the heart of Los Angeles wasn't just to promote his album Life After Death or attend the Soul Train Music Awards. It was a declaration of courage, an attempt to use music to overcome the barriers of hatred lurking outside. The footage of this fateful freestyle performance has become one of the most haunting images in modern music history. The video showed a proud Biggie with his superb rap technique, seemingly without any preparation. Those distinctive verses were later incorporated into the song Long Kiss Goodnight, and especially You're Nobody Till Somebody Kills You, a title that, even now, sends shivers down anyone's spine due to its ominous prophecy. But all the glamour of that exhilarating performance quickly turned into a horrific event that shook Los Angeles. Just a week after that performance, in the early hours of March 9, 1997, while the warmth of his freestyle lyrics still lingered on the radio, Biggie left an after-party in his GMC Suburban. At a busy Los Angeles intersection, a black car pulled alongside. Guns in the shadows opened fire, firing 4 fatal shots into the artist's chest and abdomen as he sat in the passenger seat. The devastating news of the shooting came as a cold shower, putting a cruel end to the golden age of a legendary black rapper in a foreign land. On the night of May 15, 1992, at the Salon Bougainvilleas, the audience inadvertently captured one of the most terrifying and darkest moments in music history. Midway through the performance, a stranger approached and handed Chelino Sanchez a piece of paper. The documentary footage revealed a stark truth. Upon opening the paper, the seasoned artist's face contorted, his body reacted instantly with profuse sweating, and his eyes glazed over with sheer terror. It wasn't a song request, but a deadly ultimatum. An execution order delivered right on stage, forcing the legendary artist to choose: turn off the microphone to live or continue singing to face death. Faced with an invisible gun pointed at him, the man of the harsh streets made a decision driven by instinct. Instead of fleeing or begging, Chelino wiped the sweat from his forehead, took a deep breath to regain his composure, and continued singing. Amidst the unrestrained cheers of the crowd below, the legendary singer sang with the last vestiges of courage of someone with nothing left to lose. Each lyric sung in those final moments was no longer mere entertainment, but a cold, defiant challenge to death. He chose to stand tall, fulfilling his contract with his audience with the self-respect of a man, even knowing that his sentence had already been sealed. The tragedy ended with breathtaking brutality in the early morning of May 16th. Just hours after being forcibly abducted by men posing as police officers on his way out of the performance venue, the music icon's body was found lying alone on the roadside, with 2 bullet wounds to the back of his neck. A cold, merciless purge from the darkness. Now, whenever the footage from Culiacan is replayed, one hears not only the singing, but also the beating of a heart counting down the final moments of life, reminding the world of the harsh price a man must pay to maintain his dignity until his last breath. One day in 1994 in New York, rare documentary footage captured a dress rehearsal for a musical, one of Phyllis Hyman's final appearances in front of the camera. At age 45, the powerful baritone singer approached the piano, preparing for the classic hymn, Amazing Grace. The video shows a Phyllis Hyman completely shedding her diva facade to confront her inner turmoil. She showcased her masterful soul technique, but as the performance progressed, the intense spiritual connection caused her voice to tremble. Unable to contain her pain, she broke down in tears while holding the microphone, revealing the shattered soul struggling with depression and bipolar disorder, dark aspects often obscured by the glitz and glamour of showbiz. The real tragedy struck on the afternoon of June 30th, 1995, just hours before she was scheduled to take the stage at the prestigious Apollo Theater in New York. Phyllis was found in a coma at her Manhattan apartment and died shortly afterward at St. Luke's Roosevelt Hospital from a drug overdose, a consequence of her long battle with depression and bipolar disorder. Her death just before her 46th birthday transformed the 1994 footage from a simple rehearsal into a grim premonition captured on video. Her vacant gaze and tears as she sang the hymn made the video appear as a poignant farewell where the artist used her final notes to confront her own abyss. On September 17, 2011, under the cool skies of the Autumn Jazz Explosion Music Festival in Portsmouth, Virginia, Vesta Williams took to the stage as one of the featured artists. In the dazzling setting of the event, she chose to perform the classic "Congratulations," a farewell ballad that had propelled her to the Billboard charts in the 1980s. That afternoon, the audience in Virginia still saw a Vesta full of energy, her 4-octave soprano voice still powerful and expressive, making it impossible for anyone to guess that this would be her last time under the spotlight. Rare footage of this final performance shows a Vesta who was incredibly professional and strongly connected with her fans. However, hidden behind that radiance were the melancholic premonitions as she sang about watching her life slip away and the bitter farewell in "Congratulations." In Portsmouth, she didn't just sing, she seemed to be pouring her last breaths into every note. The context of the performance became even more significant when it was later revealed that, despite diligently preparing for another major event in Los Angeles the following month, Vesta had been quietly battling serious health problems. Just 5 days after that exhilarating performance, on the evening of September 22, 2011, the world was shocked to learn that Vesta Williams had been found dead in a hotel room in El Segundo, California, near LAX Airport. The presence of prescription medication bottles at the scene fueled speculation of suicide or an overdose. However, a subsequent autopsy cleared her of any wrongdoing, determining it was a natural death due to complications from hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. The sudden passing of the diva at the age of 53 transformed her performance in Virginia into a poignant legacy where the artist used the greatest farewell song of her life to truly say goodbye to her audience.
Why is an artist's peak often their last goodbye? Behind the cheers, a quiet cry for help is missed.
On a late September afternoon in 1987 at One Market Plaza in San Francisco, the atmosphere seemed to brighten with the presence of a god emerging from the legends of disco music. Sylvester stood there amidst the boisterous celebration of the Gay Softball World Series, clad in a glittering sequined suit, as if defying all the darkness. In the precious records kept by John Woolbrandt, his quiet companion who had followed him to preserve every breath of his artistry, Sylvester appeared with unwavering confidence and pride. Despite the insidious disease silently draining his life force, he sang with soaring passion, captivating thousands with the melody of "You Make Me Feel Mighty Real." Under the fading San Francisco sun that day, one saw only an immortal symbol, where freedom and music temporarily dispelled the cruel fate lurking in the distance. But life often plays cruel tricks on the most brilliant souls with a heartbreaking contrast. Right in the midst of the spotlight, the video abruptly drops at 16:57, capturing a moment of silence that freezes the emotions of the crowd at One Market Plaza. Sylvester pauses, shedding the radiant mask of a diva to utter a heart-shattering truth. His life partner had just breathed her last night. In that raw moment, Woolbrandt's lens pierced through the opulent attire to see a bleeding soul. The artist was singing with a broken heart, dancing while grief still burned on her skin. This performance was no longer entertainment, but a desperate, last-ditch effort to use music as a lifeline, to conceal the abyss of despair spreading beneath her feet. Sylvester's final symphony concluded as the AIDS epidemic was wreaking havoc and inflicting unhealing wounds on the Black community. Just over a year after that fateful film, on December 16, 1988, he passed away in San Francisco at the age of 41, succumbing to AIDS. In May 1991, under the dazzling lights of London, a legend stood on the brink of resurrection and abyss. David Ruffin, the greatest lead singer of the Temptations, was creating a seismic shift across Europe with his former bandmates Eddie Kendricks and Dennis Edwards. At 50, Ruffin's face bore the wrinkles of a life of hardship, but his demeanor remained undeniably powerful. Footage of this performance showed a dapper Mr. Temptation in a suit, his signature glasses, and a husky yet fiery voice. As the notes of My Girl rang out, the London auditorium erupted. People saw Ruffin dance, spin, and smile, a smile that convinced thousands that the demon of drugs had finally released this genius. However, behind the perfect chemistry and the thunderous applause, this performance was actually a dance of death. It was the most brilliant moment of a candle before being consumed by darkness. The passion on the London stage was not the beginning of a new chapter, but the last sparks of an engine worn out after decades of being ravaged by stimulants. Death did not await David Ruffin in his twilight years, but lurked at the height of his career. Just 1 month after leaving the London spotlight, on June 1, 1991, the world was shocked to hear that David Ruffin had collapsed in a drug den in Philadelphia. There were no colorful lights, no elegant suits, and no applause. He died of an acute drug overdose, ending a brilliant and painful life while the audience was still captivated by the lingering echoes of his final love song. On the night of June 12, 2008, the Prospect Park Bandshell outdoor stage in Brooklyn, New York, seemed to be ablaze with the energy emanating from one of the greatest icons of soul music. Isaac Hayes stood there, under the dazzling lights, radiating the majesty of an uncrowned king. In the precious footage of this performance, the audience was immersed in timeless melodies such as Theme from Shaft, Never Can Say Goodbye, and I Stand Accused. Under the Brooklyn sky, the resounding brass instruments blended with his characteristic deep baritone voice, creating a sublime musical atmosphere that led thousands in to believe that the legend's life force was immortal. But if we look closer at those film clips, pushing aside the glittering lights, we will see a poignant reality lurking. Behind his dignified stage presence lay the body of a 65-year-old artist ravaged by a devastating stroke in early 2006. His performance at Prospect Park was essentially a battle where Isaac Hayes poured out his last breaths to uphold the dignity of a true black artist. Every note he sang was not just art, but a proud affirmation before the darkness of fate descended. This tragic contrast culminated in a shock on the morning of August 10, 2008, less than 2 months after that triumphant performance in Brooklyn. Isaac Hayes was found dead at his home in Memphis, Tennessee, after another fateful stroke. This tragic news transformed the footage from Prospect Park into the final testament to a monument. Even as his body crumbled, the artist chose to burn brightly in the spotlight, igniting an immortal flame before forever fading into eternity. On the night of October 8, 2011, the BET Hip Hop Awards stage in Atlanta erupted like a volcano as Heavy D, dubbed the benevolent giant of the rap world, made his comeback after a 15-year absence from live television. In this precious moment, we witnessed a vibrant icon completely dominating the space with classic medleys. With his dapper suit and masterful dance moves, the king of New Jack Swing music made thousands rise and cheer, believing that the reign of optimism had truly returned. The dazzling aura that night created a perfect illusion of a bright future, concealing the harsh reality silently unfolding within him. However, this final performance was, in reality, a painful visual deception. The very moment we saw the legendary artist explode with energy was also the moment death etched its name in his book of suffering. Behind those graceful dance moves lay a body on the brink of collapse. Just weeks later, on November 8, 2011, the veteran star suddenly collapsed outside his Beverly Hills apartment. The culprit wasn't a typical heart attack, but a silent killer, deep vein thrombosis. The seeds of death had taken root in the talented artist's bloodstream after a long flight, a fatigue he had chosen to push aside in order to stand tall under the spotlight. In this final scene, Heavy D was essentially using his last breaths to fight against fate, offering his audience the most radiant farewell possible.
Did our enthusiasm trap them in perfection under the stage lights, even when their life hung by fragile breaths?
In September 2005, in the solemn setting of Stevie Wonder's tribute ceremony in Los Angeles, Lou Rawls took to the stage to deliver one of the most sublime performances in soul music history. Standing before his close friend, the 72-year-old sang the love ballad, "It Was a Very Good Year," with an extraordinary composure. His smooth baritone voice brought smiles of admiration to the thousands in the audience, including Stevie Wonder. The aura emanating from his flawless voice deceived everyone, making it impossible to believe that the artist standing there was actually singing amidst the most devastating storms of fate. The stark reality behind the velvet curtain was a death sentence from lung cancer and metastatic brain cancer. But instead of succumbing to the hospital's pity, Lou Rawls chose to use his last breath to maintain the dignity of a gentleman through each soaring note. That gamble with death officially ended on January 6, 2006, at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles, when the talented artist breathed his last at the age of 72. This passing transformed the 2005 video into a poignant visual testament. Looking back at his smile and his steely voice in the video, we are heartbroken to realize that Lou chose to shine brightly just before the darkness, leaving behind the image of a king singing his triumphant song. In footage recorded on August 6, 2011 at the Kitchener Blues Festival, we see Willie "Big Eyes" Smith, the legendary drummer who was the soul of Muddy Waters Band, at age 75, standing on stage with an unmistakable presence. As he and Bob Margolin sang Long Distance Call, none of the thousands of audience members under the bright lights could have imagined they were witnessing the final performance of an icon. The exhilaration and energy emanating from his voice created a vibrant image, making people believe that time had been very kind to this artist. In reality, behind that fiery voice was a body worn down to its limit. Instead of choosing a hospital bed or displaying his exhaustion, Willie stood silently before the microphone to offer the world the most glorious farewell. The harsh reality struck just 6 weeks after that fateful performance. On September 16, 2011, in Chicago, Willie "Big Eyes" Smith breathed his last after a stroke. This sudden death made the footage from the Kitchener Festival his final images on the big stage. Looking back at Willie's eyes in the video, we see the painful contrast between the dazzling outward glamour and the fragility of life within. He chose to depart amidst applause and music, leaving behind a poignant testament to an artist who lived and burned brightly until his last breath. In the legendary town of Clarksdale, Mississippi, in 2009, attendees witnessed a scene straight out of a fairy tale about blues music. At 95, Pinetop Perkins took to the stage, carrying with him a living chronicle of Southern American music. In this precious archive, the elderly artist embodied an image that couldn't be more real. A cigarette in his mouth, his eyes squinting from the smoke, yet his thin, bony fingers glided across the piano keys with astonishing skill. The transcendence and vibrant energy emanating from this nearly centenarian created a perfect illusion, leading the audience to believe that this wizard of the piano would live on forever. The truth is, as those fingers glided across the keys, Pinetop was performing a retreat from the confines of age. The half-smoked cigarette between his lips was seen as a defiant challenge. This wizard wasn't there to beg for pity, but to prove that the spirit of the blues could make a 95-year-old body invincible. Footage from Mississippi captured the moment a legend used sharp piano notes to sever the bonds of fate. Pinetop didn't perform for us. He silently lived out his most brilliant moments, turning each key into a hammer blow that sealed the door of time. On March 21, 2011, in Austin, Texas, Pinetop Perkins passed away at the age of 97 after suffering cardiac arrest in his sleep. A strangely quiet end to a life that had once blazed on stage. Looking at the smoke from his cigarette and his distant gaze, the audience suddenly understood. He knew the party was about to end, but instead of giving up, he chose to leave while the music still echoed, leaving behind a proud legacy that a true flame only dies when the heart truly stops beating. On the night of April 4, 2016, in the heart of Manhattan, Webster Hall witnessed a moving gathering called All the Woo in the World. Under the dazzling lights, the concert was held as an emergency fundraising effort to help Bernie Worrell, the sound wizard of funk music, pay his hospital bills in his life-or-death battle with cancer. Here, the keyboard master performed a fateful reunion with the super-popular band Praxis, sharing the stage with close friends like Buckethead and Leo Nocentelli. The recording of Interworld and the New Innocents serves as vivid evidence of his final live performance in his glorious life. The truth is, behind those mesmerizing synthesizer notes, Bernie's body was ravaged by terminal lung and liver cancer. He no longer had the strength to dance or display the explosive energy of a rocker, but sat silently beside the orchestra like a meditating monk, using his final notes to sever the bonds of illness. This historic footage captures the moment a legend used sound to escape the confinement of his body, steadfastly weaving a multidimensional musical space despite the Grim Reaper's scythe looming over him. Bernie Worrell's Symphony of Life officially faded on June 24, 2016, at his home, less than 3 months after his historic performance in Manhattan. The wizard passed away at the age of 72, leaving an irreplaceable void in the world of music. This final silence transforms the Webster Hall video into a haunting legacy of pride. Bernie chose to leave while the electronic sounds still echoed, leaving behind a powerful affirmation that the flame of creativity will only die out when the heart truly stops beating. On May 31, 2000, as the album Gotta Get the Groove Back was bringing Johnny Taylor back to his golden age, few suspected that the philosopher of soul music was taking his final steps on the stage of his artistic career. In the recording of his hit, Last $2, Johnny embodied an enduring symbol of elegance, a wrinkle-free suit, a powerful, soaring voice, and absolute stage presence. He wasn't there to sing. He was telling his life story with a defiant air, leading thousands of fans to believe that the 66-year-old still had the strength to dominate the charts for decades to come. However, behind that vibrant facade lay the stark reality of a heart worn down by endless touring. Looking back at this footage, we are shocked to realize that each exhilarating note was, in fact, a high-stakes gamble with fate. Johnny didn't choose a hospital bed for refuge. He chose to stand proudly before the microphone, using the spotlight to mask a body that had reached its limit. The video inadvertently captured a haunting prophecy. The flamboyant romantic singer was singing about spending his last dollars in the final hours of his life, a tragic grandeur unfolding on the brink of darkness. The drama of the soul music legend officially ended on May 31, 2000, in Dallas. A devastating heart attack brought an end to Johnny Taylor's journey, transforming all his previous brilliance into a fragmented memory. This sudden silence makes the footage from that stage performance even more haunting. We painfully realize that while the world was still captivated by his voice, Johnny had quietly made his farewell. He chose to depart with the bearing of a king, silently dedicating himself until the very end, even when his heart was exhausted under the weight of fate. In early 1982, as the hit song 9 Times Out of 10 was sweeping the charts, music lovers were fortunate enough to witness Teddy Pendergrass in the guise of a powerful soul music god. In this precious footage, Teddy wasn't just singing, he was displaying an intense charisma, completely dominating the space with his deep, resonant baritone voice and confident strides on live television. The dazzling lights sculpted the portrait of a superstar at the peak of his career, a living and majestic entity so powerful that no one could have imagined the darkness lurking behind the doors of glory. Revisiting this footage, we are stunned by the cruel twist of fate that befell this talented artist. Shortly after those moments of triumph, on March 18, 1982. In Philadelphia, Teddy's Rolls-Royce veered off course, crashing into a median and utility pole in a horrific accident. The devastating collision not only destroyed a luxury vehicle, but also permanently shattered the life of an icon. Teddy was paralyzed from the chest down due to severe spinal cord damage, transforming a superstar who had once freely strode across the music stage into someone confined to a wheelchair at the height of his career. This tragedy has become a haunting legacy and a painful scar in the history of music, capturing his final moments standing on his own 2 feet with a carefree smile, leaving us stunned by a stark truth. Fame may shine endlessly, but human life is breathtakingly fragile. On October 4, 2009, at the El Rey Theater in Los Angeles, music lovers witnessed the haunting return of the talented veteran, Gil Scott-Heron. This was one of his rare appearances after years of imprisonment and addiction. In the documentary recording of his hit, Home is Where the Hatred Is, the aging artist embodied not a glamorous superstar, but a soul confessing the scars of his life. Under the bright yet nostalgic lights, the gaunt face etched with the suffering of the jazz rap legend created a chillingly realistic atmosphere, making anyone present feel the breath of an icon reaching its final chapters. Hidden behind that bitter singing was a harsh reality. The body of the master of words was being mercilessly ravaged by the insidious diseases that had plagued him for decades. When we revisit this footage, what we see is no longer a performance technique, but a sullen soul draining its last ounce of strength to complete its final confession to the world. He chose to stand firm before the microphone, using his powerful husky voice to confront his profound loneliness instead of surrendering to the collapse of his body. The video at El Rey thus became a tragic testament, where the leader of the spoken word chose to burn brightly with the most authentic lyrics before eternal darkness enveloped his life. Gil Scott-Heron's tumultuous journey officially ended on May 27, 2011 in New York. Returning from his European tour, he passed away at the age of 62, his lungs and strength no longer able to withstand the devastating complications of HIV/AIDS. The passing of this uncrowned king imbues the 2009 documentary with a poignant weight, exposing the cruel contrast between the fiery passion of art and the illusory fragility of human life. The father of rap vanished while the spotlight still blazed brightly, leaving behind the image of a resilient soul singing of freedom until the very end. On May 3, 2014, at the Congo Square stage of the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival, the world witnessed one of the most glorious moments of contemporary soul music. Legendary Bobby Womack emerged into the golden light of Louisiana, embodying a king reigning on his musical throne. In this precious recording, the musical master displayed a composed and dignified demeanor and a fiery, powerful baritone voice. Each soaring high note was unleashed with unrestrained freedom, blending with the orchestra to create a vibrant, pulsating symphony. Witnessing this overflowing energy and passion, thousands of audience members at NOLA were amazed, believing that this talented artist was still in the prime of his career. However, behind those exhilarating melodies lay a high-stakes gamble with fate. an extraordinary effort to maintain the dignity of a legend in the face of the silent ravages of illness. The video recording of his sublime performance in New Orleans is proof of a proud choice. He did not choose to wither away in his sickbed, but chose the sacred stage to offer the world the most brilliant farewell. But then, after that brilliant moment in New Orleans, the talented veteran quietly put pen to paper to write the final lines of his tumultuous epic. Just 2 months later, on June 27, 2014 in California, Bobby Womack cast aside all earthly burdens to enter eternity at the age of 70. He did not die from surrender to fate, but because his soul had exhausted its last breath to reach that final note, a soaring and defiant note uttered as a challenge after years of solitude in the face of the darkness of illness. This sudden silence transformed that year's footage into a haunting relic, where people were shocked to realize that the romantic wanderer had chosen to return home even while his fame still enveloped him. In July 1998, under the bright sunshine of Aruba, sound wizard Roger Troutman and his band Zapp created a real sensation at Sinbad's Summer Jam. Amidst the vibrant festival atmosphere, the revered veteran embodied an enduring icon, clad in dazzling attire showcasing his masterful guitar skills and captivating crowd control. In that performance, Roger directly led the audience into the sanctuary of talkbox and funk, the distinctive sound language that had laid the foundation for an entire era of West Coast hip-hop. The Aruba lights that night sculpted the portrait of a pioneer at the peak of his career, a spirit so full of energy that no one could have imagined the dark script silently unfolding in his homeland. However, behind the radiant smiles and explosive melodies on stage lay a cruel prelude to an unsolved tragedy. Looking back at this historic moment, we painfully realize this was the last time the father of modern funk stood in the spotlight of freedom and pure love from his audience. Before the echoes of the applause in Aruba had even faded, the curtain of fate suddenly fell in the most brutal way. On the morning of April 25, 1999, in Dayton, Ohio, a cruel script was written in the very blood of the family when Larry Troutman ambushed his younger brother outside the recording studio. In a moment of madness fueled by jealousy and hatred, Larry coldly fired, killing Roger Troutman on the very path the talented artist had once walked with pride. The cruel bullets pierced the soul of the band Zapp, completely extinguishing the light of the romantic hero before the villain also shot himself in the head to escape reality, leaving behind a silent void filled with the smell of gunpowder and the unanswered question of betrayal in kinship. In the most glorious days of 1967, the whole world seemed to bow before the perfect combination of the golden couple from Motown. In the classic recording of the hit Ain't No Mountain High Enough, the talented nightingale Tammy Terrell embodied the symbol of youthful vitality, with a radiant smile and sparkling eyes full of confidence alongside Marvin Gaye. Under the stage lights, the girl with the angelic voice was dedicating her pure energy, transforming each frame into a masterpiece of love and hope. It's hard to imagine that behind that harmonious collaboration and graceful demeanor, a grim reaper, a malignant brain tumor, was silently counting down the young artist's time. But that magnificent curtain was suddenly torn apart on the night of October 14, 1967, in Virginia. Right in the midst of a performance, that early blooming flower unexpectedly collapsed into Marvin Gaye's arms, marking the end of an entity already mercilessly ravaged by a terrible disease. Looking back at the dazzling footage, we painfully realize that the 1967 performance was the final triumph, where the ill-fated predecessor chose to shine brightest before being swallowed by eternal darkness. This video inadvertently became a visual testament, preserving Tammy's beauty and talent perfectly before a life-or-death battle filled with blood and tears. After facing death 8 times on the operating table on March 16, 1970, That early bloomer quietly chose to surrender to eternal darkness at the age of 24. This final silence was not only a mournful moment for Motown, but also a bleeding scar that plunged Marvin Gaye into a deep depression for many years. The young singer passed away like a shooting star, fading at its brightest point, turning her 1967 performance into a haunting relic of a soul that had exhausted its last breath to shine brightly before the velvet curtain of fate closed forever. On the night of January 19, 1988, the General Jackson riverboat, cutting through the waters of the Cumberland River, inadvertently became a witness to one of the final triumphant moments in R&B history. In the classic Nashville setting, baritone Brook Benton embodied elegance. In this refined performance, the Southern star used his deep, resonant voice to infuse the hit endlessly with captivating introspection, showcasing the full power of a mature icon and using that very serenity to strengthen the nostalgic hearts of Nashville fans. However, beneath the calm surface of the Cumberland River that night, a silent drain of life force was taking place within the artist. The footage from Nashville was not merely entertainment, but a testament to the resilience of an artist using his last ounce of strength to protect his voice from the harsh realities of illness. Upon reviewing this archive, we are shocked to realize that this is the unique finale, the moment when the R&B giant strived to complete his mission of serving his audience before laying down his musical instrument. On April 9, 1988, while tirelessly striding along the artistic paths of an unfinished tour, the master baritone Brook Benton suddenly found his eternal resting place in New York at the age of 56, when the cruel disease of meningitis abruptly ended the journey of a traveler still deeply devoted to his music. On the night of July 19, 2006, under the dazzling lights of Las Vegas, the mother of R&B, Ruth Brown, embarked on her final musical journey at the age of 78. Despite her frail legs and needing to sit in a high chair for support, she commanded the entire audience with the authority of a queen seated on her throne. The footage perfectly captured the image of this powerful woman, using her distinctive husky voice and witty stories to warm hearts, making us all believe that the flame in her soul would never be extinguished. Tragically, the vibrant melodies of that night were a silent farewell as the solo journey of faith and music in this legendary diva reached its final notes. Watching her every gesture in the frame, we cannot help but feel a pang of sadness, realizing that this was the last time the brightest star of the Atlantic Records era would shine so brightly before the world. On November 17, 2006, the mother of soul music passed away at the age of 78, leaving behind her weary heart to return to the embrace of God. After a lifetime of tirelessly spreading melodies, her heart unexpectedly chose its final resting place, closing the chapter of a free spirit. Her performance on stage that day became an immortal legacy, where this talented woman chose to dissolve into eternal light amidst the lingering echoes of applause. In the realm of music, there are moments so brilliant that we mistake their radiance for eternity. Watching Billy Stewart burn the stage with primal energy, no one could have imagined that such a blazing torch could be extinguished in the depths of silence in the blink of an eye. In 1966, Billy Stewart created a musical earthquake with his groundbreaking rendition of "Summertime." The footage of his live performance that year is not just documentation, but the most vivid evidence of the golden age of this master of rhythm. Amidst the dazzling lights, he showcased his masterful scat vocal technique and vocal embellishments, transforming each note into a dance of power and freedom. The image of a blazing Billy Stewart in 1966 became a symbol of a boundless soul era. However, fate was a cruel musician. It often chose to break the most resonant keys at the very moment the symphony of life reached its brilliant climax. Just a few years after illuminating the artistic sky on January 17, 1970, A sad chapter permanently closed the journey of the renowned singer at the age of 32. On his fateful tour, the vehicle carrying the artistic soul suddenly veered off the road and plunged into the icy waters of the Neuse River, causing the proudest sounds to vanish into the raging currents. That tragic event sculpted the arrangement of Summertime into a priceless sonic testament. Amidst the blazing melodies, the proud star of the soul era seemed to have breathed his last breath before dissolving into the eternal flow, leaving behind a vast silence like the surface of the Neuse River that year. A heart-wrenching silence where a brilliant talent ceased to exist, yet its echoes continued to resonate in the hearts of his fans. In 1965, on the brightly lit stage of the Hollywood A Go-Go show, a scene both magnificent and heartbreaking unfolded as the legendary Frankie Lymon attempted to reclaim his lost glory. In this documentary, steeped in despair, the 22-year-old singer was forced to lip-sync to his own clear soprano voice from his 13th year. Amidst strained smiles and labored dance moves, viewers were struck by a cruel reality. The once prodigious musician was now a ghost of the past, his body emaciated and his teeth missing, a consequence of years of being exploited by record labels and a devastating heroin addiction. Tragically, that forced performance was the final act of a lost star before darkness completely engulfed his life. Following the rhythm on stage, our hearts ached as we realized this was the last time the brightest child star of the rock and roll era would stand under the spotlight. That evening wasn't a rebirth. It was a phantom farewell, a moment when the soul of the hit song, "Why Do Fools Fall in Love?" struggled one last time before his career and personality crumbled completely in the vortex of drugs. The chilling truth came knocking on February 27, 1968, when Frankie Lymon breathed his last on the cold bathroom floor in Harlem, New York, at the age of 25. The tragedy occurred on the very night he was scheduled to record, to start anew. But an excessive dose of heroin abruptly ended the unfinished symphony of a lifetime. This passing etched itself into the haunting film of 1965, where the gifted artist chose to retain one last radiant smile for the audience before stepping alone into eternal darkness with the cruel syringe by his side, leaving a painful silence for an entire generation who had once cherished his angelic voice. On December 17, 1999, at the CBS studios in the heart of Manhattan, the legendary Grover Washington Jr. wove the final melodies of his illustrious career. In the cozy studio space, the pioneer of smooth jazz embodied elegance, using his captivating saxophone to soothe the souls of the audience with the classic hit, "Just the Two of Us." Through this landmark documentary, one sees that he was not merely playing music, but pouring his heart and soul into every breath, transforming the saxophone into a living entity to deliver his final tribute to the world amidst the approaching festive season. Tragically, the dazzling light of that studio day became a silent farewell to a refined artist. As the final notes faded into nothingness, the clock of destiny began its final beat. Just hours after the recording session, in the quiet stillness of the waiting room, the talented artist suddenly collapsed, overwhelmed by a sudden heart attack. Despite all medical efforts to save him, the jazz legend chose to end his earthly journey while the echoes of his trumpet still warmed millions of hearts. In May 1996, amidst the fervent enthusiasm of the Japanese audience, funk and blues legend Johnny "Guitar" Watson embodied an enduring symbol of elegance and pride. In that moment, we saw a radiant soul, radiating pure energy through every gesture and optimistic smile to those around him. The footage captured the mesmerizing performance of the string wizard, passionately weaving fiery rhythms, as if the symphony of his life had been frozen in its most glorious note. Just 6 days after that peaceful moment, on the night of May 17, 1996, Fate had already laid out the most tragic script at the Blues Alley Club in Yokohama. Minutes after the opening performance of his Japanese tour began, while the first sounds were still resonating with promise, the darkness of destiny suddenly descended. In the midst of the soaring music and the dancing guitar notes at his fingertips, the warrior of funk music suddenly collapsed under the sudden wrath of his heart. At the age of 61, he performed the most sacred and direct curtain call of a true man, falling while holding the weapon of his life and standing before the reverence of his fans. His passing transformed the opening night into an eternal epilogue where the string wizard chose to end his performance at its peak, leaving behind an unfinished but proud chapter in Japanese musical history. On the evening of May 14, 2015, at the dazzling Dolby Theater, Natalie Cole, a precious member of the Cole family, took to the stage for a musical journey that no one suspected would be her last in front of the cameras. Amidst the opulent setting, a resilient spirit refused to compromise in the face of the raging storms of illness raging within. As the vibrant melody of "This Will Be" resonated, she wasn't just singing. She was drawing upon the last rays of sunshine to warm the audience. The audience was captivated by her smile, believing her passion was boundless. But that was precisely when fate began to play its cruelest card. While the world was immersed in the vision of eternal love, she was singing. At that very moment of radiance, the hourglass of fate silently turned. Few knew that behind that powerful voice lay a heart already broken after years of battling illness. As the applause at the Dolby Theater faded, Natalie Cole quietly entered a life-or-death battle without the spotlight. The twist in this fateful story occurred precisely at the fateful moment of New Year's Eve, December 31, 2015. Just as the world was preparing to welcome new hopes, Natalie Cole chose to cast aside all her pain and return to God at the age of 65. Her passing on the final night of the year transformed her May performance into a haunting testament of faith. The legendary singer sang of eternity at the threshold of nothingness, leaving behind a poignant silence, where the daughter who once lived in her father's shadow now officially became an unforgettable icon, an unforgettable legend in the hearts of posterity. On July 25, 2013, at a music festival in Azerbaijan, the talented artist George Duke took to the stage for his final performance. In this precious video, we see him still full of energy, leading the band with a gentle smile and skillful hands gliding across the piano keys. That night, George Duke poured his heart and soul into the melodies to pay tribute to his beloved wife, who had passed away a year earlier. The audience was captivated by the music, believing he was still in his prime, but the truth was far more painful. His silent sacrifice lay behind the stage lights. While the crowd cheered, few knew that George Duke was silently suffering from leukemia. His body was weakened by illness and the pain of losing a loved one. Yet each time he pressed the piano keys, he tried to overcome his fatigue to give his all to the audience. He used his last ounce of strength to complete the tour, as a heartfelt farewell to life. Fate cruelly claimed his name just 11 days after that brilliant performance. On August 5, 2013, George Duke breathed his last in hospital at the age of 67. His sudden death, right after the tour ended, turned the footage from Azerbaijan into a priceless memento. It captured the image of a true artist who lived and burned with passion for music until the very end. George Duke passed away just as the song dedicated to his wife was finished, leaving a huge void in the hearts of his fans around the world. On the evening of October 28, 2006, under the dazzling lights of a luxurious New York concert hall, music lovers witnessed a moment of legend, where soul giant Gerald Levert finally fulfilled his wish to share the stage and sing an impromptu duet with his greatest idol, Stevie Wonder. Under the camera lens, Gerald appeared full of energy, showcasing his warm voice and explosive power that seemed to ignite the entire space. No one in the audience that day could have imagined that those sublime notes would be his final farewell to the world. Just 13 days later, on November 10, 2006, the entire music world was shocked by the tragic news. Gerald Levert had passed away at his home in Ohio at the age of 40. Even more heartbreaking, the tragedy did not stem from a terminal illness, but from a harmless mix-up. The autopsy revealed he died from acute poisoning due to an accidental combination of prescription medications, doses he had diligently taken daily to alleviate chronic back pain and shoulder injuries after years of dedication to the stage. His sudden death at the height of his career transformed that New York filming experience from a beautiful memory into a haunting legacy, leaving an irreplaceable void in the hearts of soul music lovers. In 2013, amidst the dazzling atmosphere of the Seoul Olympic Stadium, James Ingram, the flame-bearer of soul music, lit up the stage in an iconic concert. The video documenting this final reunion shows him standing alongside his great mentor, Quincy Jones, performing the classic hit Just Once with a powerful voice and a sublime demeanor. That night, James Ingram was weaving a bridge of sound connecting hearts in South Korea, mastering every emotion with his elegant and exhilarating presence. Audiences were captivated by the soaring high notes, believing that James Ingram's voice would continue to sail far across the ocean of world music. However, few suspected that the dazzling spotlight in Seoul was the prelude to a silent farewell. Behind the fiery voice and radiant smile on that international stage lay a harsh reality, silently creeping in. As the applause faded, James Ingram began a solitary battle in the shadows against a devastating brain cancer. For years afterward, he chose to keep his pain to himself, leaving the public with the final image of a brilliant, powerful artist rather than a body ravaged by the disease. The final bell of fate rang on January 29, 2019, when James Ingram breathed his last in Los Angeles at the age of 66. His passing, after years of battling brain complications, forever etched his performance in Korea into a priceless sonic sculpture, preserving the last rays of light from a legendary voice before nightfall completely enveloped everything. On the night of November 7, 2017, inside the majestic dome of St. John the Divine Church, a dazzling spectacle deceived all the senses of those present. Queen of Soul. Aretha Franklin appeared to close the 25th anniversary gala of the Elton John AIDS Foundation. In a shimmering, sequined cream gown and a luxurious fur coat, she stood tall on the stage like a queen reigning at the pinnacle of glory. As she sang I Say a Little Prayer, and then the explosive Freeway, the entire cathedral seemed to erupt with a sharp, powerful sound. Her voice remained vibrant, as if it had sealed away all the decaying laws of nature, transforming that moment into an eternal realm untouched by decay. But the dazzling spectacle was merely a perfect disguise for the harsh reality unfolding within. The stark truth began to emerge as the camera lens peered through the lights to zoom in on the artist. Behind the thick fur coat, used to conceal her gaunt and aching skeletal frame, lay the devastating scars of terminal pancreatic cancer. The audience saw her radiant smile, but not the legs struggling to maintain her balance throughout the performance. They heard her extraordinary inner strength, but not the spasms of a body draining away its last drop of life. Yet that glorious flame quietly faded as her final mission was completed. Just 9 months after that fateful gala night, on August 16, 2018, Aretha Franklin officially shed her earthly cloak and departed to the eternal realm. All the destructive efforts of cancer ceased at the threshold of faith, transforming the New York performance into a brilliant testament to her devotion. The legendary singer's final performance was a gentle reminder that even as the curtain draws to a close, a red rose can still choose to bloom most brilliantly, only to fade away forever in absolute reverence and solemnity. On August 19, 2006, amidst the fiery atmosphere of the Reggae Sundance Festival in the Netherlands, the soul of the band culture, Joseph Hill, made his final musical journey before the cameras. Footage capturing these fateful steps showed a reggae master at the peak of his career, displaying an explosive energy as if drawing strength from Mother Earth herself. For over an hour, Joseph Hill didn't just sing, he unleashed messages of love and salvation, commanding the stage with a dignified demeanor and a voice as captivating as in his youth. The audience immersed themselves in the rhythm of 2/7's clash, believing that the beacon of reggae would continue to shine for decades to come, for no sign of fatigue could penetrate his vibrant presence. However, few could have imagined that the dazzling performance in Eindhoven would be the final landing of a tireless bird. Behind the graceful dance moves and radiant smiles on stage that year lay a cruel reality silently counting down. As the final melodies faded and the stage lights dimmed, Joseph Hill entered his fateful 48 hours, a brief pause before the symphony of his life reached its final note. The bell of fate rang out just 2 days later. On August 21, 2006, while continuing his tour with his band in Berlin, Joseph Hill suddenly collapsed and departed this world at the age of 57. His death was so swift that the warmth of his performance in the Netherlands seemed to still linger on his clothes. This unexpected passing forever transformed the Sundance video into a tragic musical relief, forever freezing the life of an icon before his final journey. On a day in May 1979, the Mike Douglas Show captured one of the most spectacular performances of Minnie Riperton's career. Appearing to promote her self-titled album, Minnie, the singer lit up the studio with her elegant attire and signature radiant smile. In this footage, she performed the ballad Memory Lane with exquisite 5-octave soprano technique. The audience was completely captivated by her gentle enunciation and flowing melody, creating a musical atmosphere so sublime that no one could have imagined this would be one of her last appearances under the spotlight. However, the footage from Mike Douglas's show revealed a starkly hidden aspect of the life-or-death struggle Minnie was silently enduring behind the scenes. In reality, this sublime performance is a clever disguise. Each soaring high note in the video is not just art, but the desperate effort of an artist facing the devastating effects of illness. Since 1976, Minnie had been diagnosed with breast cancer and underwent a mastectomy. Despite the cancer spreading to her lymphatic system and doctors predicting she only had months to live, Minnie persevered for the past 3 years. This moment captures the artist humming emotionally charged high notes amidst silent physical pain, with her remaining time measured in days. This was less than 2 months after this footage was recorded. On July 12, 1979, Minnie Riperton passed away at Cedars-Sinai Hospital in Los Angeles at the age of 31 due to complications from metastatic breast cancer right in the middle of her career. In 2004, under the dim yellow lights of a Chicago theater, the philosopher of the arts, Oscar Brown Jr., poured his final breaths into the grand musical, The Great Nitty-Gritty. In these sacred theatrical productions, at age 77, he was not only the executive producer, but also a witness to history. Amidst the agonizing violence of the city center, Oscar orchestrated a haunting spiritual dialogue. Young Willie Boy stands on the brink of death, and his soul is guided by none other than Jean-Baptiste Point du Sable, the founding father of Chicago. With his elegant demeanor and undiminished vocal power, Oscar appeared on stage as an invisible link, striving to enlighten future generations about the fragile boundary between error and salvation through the interplay between the living and the spirits of their ancestors. The chilling twist of fate lies in the uncanny resemblance between the script and real life. While Oscar was using the spirit of DuSable to guide Willie Boy away from death on stage, he himself was silently facing his own final expedition. Few could have imagined that the brilliant 2004 project would be his final artistic manifesto. Just months after the curtain closed on the play, a cruel invasion from within began. Osteomyelitis, a serious bone infection, began to erode the old warrior's frame. On May 29, 2005, in a hospital in his beloved Chicago, Oscar Brown Jr. breathed his last at the age of 78. Like the DuSable he revered, Oscar chose to leave the public eye after having passed on the key to his legacy to future generations. On a summer evening in 2024, under the dazzling lights of Town Center Park in Hamden, Connecticut, thousands of spectators witnessed the haunting final moments of hip-hop legend Fatman Scoop. In these fateful scenes, Scoop appeared in his familiar rugged style, climbing onto the DJ booth and shouting his rallying cry to raise the crowd's energy to its highest level. He remained an unstoppable energy machine, showing no signs of fatigue. The audience cheered along to the beat, believing they were enjoying the most exhilarating moments of his hit, Be Faithful. But immediately after his final command, "Hamden, if you came to party, make some noise," fate struck a cruel blow. The video captured the moment Scoop stumbled back behind the DJ booth just as the crowd's cheers erupted. An eerie silence descended as he suddenly collapsed behind the stage, disappearing from the sight of the stunned crowd. Behind that imposing presence lay a heart silently weakened by long-standing cardiovascular disease and atherosclerosis. The music abruptly ceased, replaced by the frantic activity of medical personnel performing CPR right on the stage. Although he was rushed to a local hospital, the 53-year-old artist never regained consciousness, ending a life of dedication in the very place where he was most loved. In January 2002, amidst the dazzling lights of a Los Angeles studio, fans witnessed a completely different Lisa Left Eye Lopes. Under her new stage name, Nina, she appeared powerful alongside music mogul Suge Knight to announce a new chapter in her career. In these final interview clips, Left Eye couldn't hide her radiant smile and unwavering determination as she announced her controversial solo contract with Tharo Records. This was the moment she chose to break free from the old cocoon of the group TLC to assert her individuality, once again confidently taking control of her artistic destiny, much to the astonishment of her fans. However, few suspected that the radiant smile and bold plans of that night were her silent last wishes. Hidden behind the eloquent pronouncements about a future rebuilding of the record label was her final appearance on national television. Just weeks after that interview, Lisa set off for Honduras in search of peace and to pursue a personal project, unaware that she was drawing closer to a cruel twist of fate. As the lights on the California studio faded, a devastating journey began. On April 25, 2002, amidst the desolate landscape of Jutiapa, Honduras, a real earthquake struck. While driving her Mitsubishi Montero with family, Lisa was forced to make a fateful swerve to avoid a head-on collision. In an instant, the car lost control, flipped over, and veered off the road. That tragic crash claimed the life of a legend on the spot, leaving shock and despair throughout the music world. Her death at the age of 30 transformed that Los Angeles interview into a poignant testament to an unfulfilled dream. It was no longer a conversation about the music business, but a moment that captured the most brilliant soul of an artist always yearning for change. Lisa Lopes left, leaving behind a poignant silence, where her powerful image in that final interview will forever remain a reminder of a shooting star that shone brightest just before fading into nothingness. In July 1970, at the Newport Jazz Festival in Rhode Island, attendees were fortunate enough to witness a historic moment. It was when the Queen of Gospels and the legendary Louis Armstrong shared the outdoor stage to sing Just a Closer Walk with Thee. In an elegant blue dress, the renowned singer's powerful voice resonated throughout the vast festival space. The image of the great African-American artist at that moment was one of her most radiant appearances on a large stage in her homeland in the final years of her life. However, the truth about the music icon's health began to emerge just a year later. In a 1971 interview filmed in Japan, the audience no longer saw the healthy Mahalia they had seen in Newport. Instead, we saw a noticeably thinner woman, her face etched with fatigue from her advanced heart disease and diabetes. Despite her physical exhaustion from long flights, the pop star sat before Tokyo television cameras, slowly sharing her life and faith. The footage wasn't a glamorous interview, but the most heartfelt confessions of an artist striving to fulfill her final mission in a foreign land. Shortly after her Asian tour, the great singer's body could no longer endure it. Her plans to perform in Europe were completely canceled due to her failing health. Mahalia Jackson returned to the United States and breathed her last on January 27, 1972, in Illinois at the age of 60, concluding a musical journey filled with glory but also considerable pain in her final years. Around 2010, inside the dazzling space of the Park Central Hotel in New York, disco lovers witnessed an unforgettable night. In these energetic scenes, singer Loliata Holloway appeared amidst a frenzied crowd, those who had come to rediscover the spirit of traditional dance music. On the warm yet vibrant stage, the disco star recreated the classic hit Love Sensation with a powerful voice untouched by time. The veteran artist, still full of life and effortlessly energizing the audience, left no doubt that this was one of her final public appearances. However, that dazzling New York night was merely the prelude to a tragic turning point in her life. Shortly after these vivid images were captured, the dance music icon's health began to deteriorate significantly due to cardiovascular problems. The entire sequence of events reveals a spirit of unwavering dedication as the great artist poured all her heart and soul into keeping the stage alive right before tragedy struck. Fate called her name just months after that fateful performance. On March 21, 2011, Loliata Holloway breathed her last in Chicago from heart failure at the age of 64. Her passing transformed the video from the Park Central Hotel into a precious visual legacy, capturing the final moments when she was at the peak of her career. The legendary singer left a painful void on the world's dance floors, but her fiery voice from that evening in 2010 will forever be a testament to an artist's spirit that never faltered in the face of the difficulties of her final years. In the final days of his career, R&B legend Percy Sledge took to a professional stage to perform a piece that would later become an unforgettable part of his legacy. In a solemn musical setting, amidst the backing of the band and the respectful silence of the audience, the legendary artist sang the timeless melody of When a Man Loves a Woman. Even in the later stages of his career, the veteran singer retained his unique, emotional, and world-weary style. His image under the spotlight at that moment was a testament to his intense love for music, making it difficult for viewers to notice the signs of a body gradually weakening in its twilight years. In the final moments of his life, Percy Sledge had bravely battled liver cancer for a long time. These vivid clips capture some of the last times the world witnessed him, fully dedicating himself to the stage before his health deteriorated significantly. Every performance was a testament to the never-give-up spirit of a great artist. However, that dedication came to an end when the disease reached its most devastating stage. The renowned singer passed away on April 14, 2015, at his home in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, at the age of 74, due to severe liver failure complications resulting from a long battle with cancer. Just 3 days after his death, this video was widely shared as a profound tribute, turning it into a moving farewell to his fans. On June 10, 2012, thousands of spectators at Harborfest in Norfolk, Virginia, witnessed one of the most fiery performances by the Ohio Players. On the outdoor beachfront stage, the legendary frontman Leroy "Sugarfoot" Bonner appeared with his signature guitar to perform the classic hit, Fire. In these footage, the iconic artist still displayed his powerful style and strong vocals, electrifying the crowd with the energy of his prime. The iconic image of the funk music scene was so defiant that no one could recognize this as one of his last appearances on a large stage. However, the radiant stage in Norfolk was actually a clever veil, concealing the cruel changes taking place within his body. In his final years, the architect of the grooves had been facing a silent physical decline due to a terrible cancer. Despite being ravaged by illness, the veteran star refused to surrender. He chose to face the public with a defiant demeanor, allowing his guitar and vocals to unleash the most powerful survival instinct of an artist. That night's performance was no longer just ordinary entertainment, but a moment when the driver of Ohio Players used his charisma to push back the darkness of pain, transforming his final appearance into a brilliant and complete milestone before night truly fell. The artistic mission of the guitar legend officially ended just 7 months later. On January 26, 2013, Sugarfoot Bonner breathed his last in Trotwood, Ohio, at the age of 69, with the cause confirmed as complications from the cancer he had bravely faced for many years. His passing has transformed the video footage from Virginia into invaluable documentary footage, capturing the final steps and warmth of an icon before he departed this world. In 1989, under the magnificent dome of the Shrine Theater in Los Angeles, the 31st Grammy Awards inadvertently captured the final notes of an icon. In that historic moment, the Divine One, the woman hailed as a goddess of jazz, appeared with an unusually calm demeanor. Without flashy dance moves, this master of vocals commanded the stage with just a glance and a voice control technique that had reached the pinnacle of 20th century artistry. The international audience that night remained captivated by Sarah Vaughan's grace, unaware that they were accompanying her on her final steps on a grand stage before the darkness of illness descended. In reality, that elegant appearance on television was the final resting place of the precious gem nicknamed Sassy. Just months after the lights went out in Los Angeles, a harsh reality struck. A malignant lung tumor began its silent but aggressive invasion. In her final moments, the woman who possessed a powerful voice like a brass instrument had to choose to retreat into silence. The soaring notes at the Grammy Awards suddenly became the most elegant farewell she could offer the world, just before her health completely collapsed. On April 3, 1990, in Hidden Hills, California, the great singer breathed her last at the age of 66. The cause of death was determined to be severe complications from lung cancer, a painful end for someone who had cherished every breath to dedicate to art. The footage from that year's Grammy Award ceremony is now not just a glorious memory, but has become a priceless visual testament. Sarah Vaughan has passed away, leaving behind a space of profound reverence, where her voice continues to resonate as an eternal standard, illuminating the tumultuous final years of a legend's life. In June 2004, at the BET Awards, a spark flew through the auditorium when the king of funk punk, Rick James, unexpectedly emerged from the shadows of oblivion. In dazzling, flamboyant attire, the most outrageous star in history strode onto the national stage with the air of a king returning to reclaim his lost kingdom. As he harmonized with Tina Marie on the hit Fire and Desire, time seemed to be stifled by the mesmerizing and sensual sound. The climax of his arrogance came when the legendary braided-haired man roared the now iconic line, "I'm Rick James, Bach." In this precious archive, there is no sign of decline. Conversely, the symbol of rebellion was exhausting every breath to display its ultimate pride, silencing thousands of younger artists before a vitality that seemed to defy the laws of nature. However, as soon as the arrogant legend left that dazzling spotlight, a terrifying silence began to envelop his Los Angeles apartment. On August 6, 2004, while the praises still echoed throughout the newspapers, the illustrious romantic quietly boarded his final train to return to eternity at the age of 56. The subsequent autopsy report revealed a painful reality. The heart and lungs of the soul of funk music had completely succumbed to the weight of a lifetime of conquest, as the devastating complications of diabetes and stroke silently stole the artist's breath. This sudden departure transformed his return at the BET Awards into a poignant legacy, a moment when the uncrowned king chose to let his soul fade into nothingness while the crown of pride still shone brightly. Instead of passively accepting the flickering candle of life in the weariness of a sickbed, the illustrious romantic chose to become part of eternal darkness, while the image of a proud monarch remained etched in the world's mind. He departed like a raging tide, suddenly receding into the deep ocean at its peak, leaving a haunting void in the heart of an era of rebellion. On September 14, 1975, inside the Four Seasons Arena in Massachusetts, thousands of spectators were fortunate enough to witness the final triumphant moments of the King of Performance, Jackie Wilson. In these precious color film clips, the master of the stage appeared with charisma and seemingly inexhaustible energy. For over 30 minutes, he captivated the audience with his masterful dance moves and powerful vocals in his hit song, Higher and Higher. The image of the legendary singer at that moment was so radiant and intense that no one could believe this was the last time the camera would capture Jackie Wilson at his peak and healthiest in his artistic career. However, the dazzling lights at Walpole were actually a farewell to the illustrious career of the soul star. Just 2 weeks after this performance, a horrific tragedy unfolded before the public's eyes. While performing the exhilarating rendition of Lonely Teardrops in New Jersey, the musical icon suddenly collapsed from an acute heart attack. This fateful fall not only ended a performance, but also marked the end of a musical dynasty. Although he miraculously survived, severe cerebral hypoxia plunged the multi-talented artist into a heartbreaking reality, a vegetative state lasting 9 long years in silent contemplation. The curtain officially closed on the life of this great artist in 1984, when he passed away at the age of 49. This marked the end of nearly a decade of silent struggle, a tragic conclusion to the vibrant energy he had contributed in his final years. The video from Walpole in 1975 has now become a fateful legacy, a poignant testament to his final peak dance moves and vocals before this musical icon faded into eternal silence. On the night of March 25, 1983, the stage at the Motown 25th Anniversary Gala in California was breathtaking as Prince of Soul Marvin Gaye emerged in a pristine white suit, like an angel lost in the mortal world. Beside the grand piano, the legendary veteran slowly poured into the space the haunting melodies of his hit What's Going On. It was a solo performance so authentic and silent that the entire audience held their breath. In this precious record, the solitary star revealed a voice that had reached the peak of his life experience. The stage lights that night captured the final image of a musical leader at the height of his fame, but few suspected that the elegant white was a facade for a soul bleeding and broken from within. Looking back at this classic film, we painfully realize it's the struggle of a lost soul trying to conceal its severe paranoia and the devastating effects of cocaine addiction from the world. Behind the scenes, the icon of soul music lived in constant fear of invisible guns, to the point of wearing a bulletproof vest for illusory safety. The video at Motown 25 was essentially a final burst of a candle before it went out, where the musical master poured his last ounce of strength into a flawless performance, before succumbing to the darkness of fate. Exactly 1 year later, on April 1st, 1984, just a breath away from his 45th birthday, the symphony of the Soul Prince's life was abruptly interrupted by the death knell from his own father's gun in his own home. In a fit of unexplained rage, the father himself fired the fatal shots, ending the life of his talented son with the very gun Marvin had given him. The haunting last words in his brother's arms, "I got what I wanted, I made him do it," revealed a painful indirect suicide scenario. This bloody death forever transformed the image of the Prince of Soul in his white suit into a cruel memento, a monument that chose to crumble at the hands of his own flesh and blood. As the stage lights faded into the darkness, we truly understood that these fateful moments captured the final breaths of our black artists, transforming the face of death into a proud hymn where the final melodies were sung before they boarded the train that would take them to their ancestors. If these final performances touched your heart, please like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next emotionally charged journeys of memories.